Good morning, guys. Good morning. Welcome to the Fearless Morning Show, where we are having confessions and conversations about your everyday life. My name is Yamitra Jojo Waddell, the only Live Past Crazy specialist. So, what better place to be than here with me? Good morning. Let's do the introduction right fast. Please make sure you share the show because sharing is caring. If your friends and family don't have Facebook, send them over to the YouTube channel. They can binge watch all the Fearless Morning shows over there and subscribe on YouTube. If you're watching, go ahead and click that subscribe button and hit that bell. It costs you absolutely nothing to do that. You can also listen to the podcast everywhere podcasts are found, including Alexa now. So thank you very, very much for that, Alexa. Um, and of course, all the books we have 8. You can read them anywhere and the movie and all the things. Good morning, Tiffany. Good morning. Good morning. So I hope you guys are ready. Let me click on this right here to get the show started. So I hope you enjoyed the show yesterday. Yesterday we talked about trauma, what it is, what it ain't, what it looked like. Um, Good morning, Tammy. So I hope that helped somebody yesterday because we talked about that. Let me put the link to like to do that at the front so I don't forget. So you can have it. So if you would like any of the products from Mitra Jojo Water, you can go there and check them out. Now, for tea this morning, we're having ginger and lemon. It's going to be a great day. So this morning, guys, let's talk about telling time. And I want to add it, combine it with yesterday. Because with the telling of time, I want us to look at it in response to healing. And we talked about those traumatic events. Now, if you've done some work on yourself, or even if you haven't, you've done this, you've said this, before this happened, I did this. After this happened, the thought just hit me, I gotta write it down. After this happened, then I did this. So there is JoJo before abuse. There's JoJo in the center of it. There's JoJo after abuse. Then there's the JoJo that is understanding and that is healed. Like, so there's sections to this thing. And so telling time, you have time markers, right? You have time markers that tell your story for you. And these time markers mark your life. They mark every part of your life. They mark beginning, end, middle. They mark traumas. They mark healing spots. And we begin to tell time that way. Now, in telling time, I want to call it healing time. So at some point in your time markers of your life, whatever marker you're going to put there that says at this moment at 7:39 a.m. at this time, this became a marker because something happened here. You can say that's a time marker, or it can become a healing marker or a healing time. At this, so July 26, 2004 is my freedom date. That is a time marker. That is a healing marker. That's when healing started. I didn't know it started on that day, but it did. And so I encourage you, and you don't listen, we're all free to choose, is to think about how are you going to mark the next phase? What is the healing marker you're going to put? If we have time markers and we know trauma happened this, well, mom and daddy did this before this age, and there was a trauma here. And well, after that, and listen, after you set a trauma marker, and it has marked your time. It has marked your time in life. And you decide to add a healing marker there. It eliminates, or you are in the process of eliminating all the trauma that came with that marker. Yeah, with me. Meaning, if I'm deciding that I'm going to heal from this trauma mark, this time mark, then as I heal, and yesterday we talked about our body handles trauma in layers, and so we heal in layers. And so it's every layer that I come to, I'm erasing that trauma. So, and y'all remember the give and take at Sister Rise, the give and take. We're giving something away and we're taking back. I'm giving away the trauma and I'm taking back the healing. And so we're going to exchange those two things out. And so now I have a healing marker instead of a trauma marker. Because July 26, 2004 was a traumatic day for me. I now call it a healing day. I call it my freedom day. And as you grow and as you get farther along, you can rename those things. Listen, there's no rules to this thing. There's no rules to how you heal. There's no rules to the time limit that it's going to take you to heal, how to get over it. That's the beautiful thing. You, as you're walking this journey, you get to decide your time, your healing time. Like if you need a couple of months to heal from this thing and you're intentional and serious about that, then you take the time to heal. And that's your healing marker. So today I want you to take time to think about the time markers in your life. So if your time marker was, I grew up in an unstable home up until 12. And then that's a time marker. Well, what happened from 12 to 18? That's another time marker. Well, after I had kids, that was a time marker. Oh, wait a minute, I got married. That was a time marker. In any of those time markers, was there a traumatic event? Meaning something happened to you that you in that moment were not you could not emotionally and physically respond to that event. It was too much for you to take in, so you couldn't, but it marked the space and time. It could be the death of a family. Let me tell you, a time marker is my Uncle Joe's death, my father's death, my biological father's death, my uncles. Like we have time markers and healing markers throughout the way. Good morning, I'm Miss Margaret. We have time markers everywhere. Now, with these time markers, we can, now that I'm aware, now that I'm consciously aware, I can begin to call the next one a healing marker or a healing time. Because if these time markers are my time telling things, like they're telling my time of my timeline of my life, then I need at some point for there to be a healing time. Absolutely, Margaret. Listen, I haven't lost a brother or sister, but I can only imagine how traumatic that is. So as we're looking at time telling and time markers, the things that mark our time, I want us to begin the healing time. Put in here a healing marker. So if July 26th was a traumatic event, it was a time marker in my life. When I tell my story, there's a before Jamal and after Jamal. And I chose to stop saying that was the day I left my ex-abuser. That's my freedom date. I renamed that because it began my healing journey. So as we rename these as healing times or a healing marker, I like that, healing marker. Think about if that was such an event that happened that made you pause, or it was so overwhelming, what is your healing moment going to be for you? Is your healing marker or your healing time going to be just as impactful as the traumatic event? And I want us to know it can be, right? So, and as we pull back these layers to traumas and we're healing layer by layer, and you begin to mark those healing markers. Oh, I healed this, and there was a healing. And healing looks like whatever it feels like for you. So if you have dealt with the situation mentally, emotionally, and physically, and you can articulate how you feel, think about it, and it no longer causes uh, a reaction as it did when it was a traumatic event, but now it's a healing event, then friend, you're free to move on and stop revisiting that. So if you've been with me for a long time, if you've been my friend, when I first left my ex-abuser, it was all I wanted to talk about. I could not talk about anything else. I could not speak on anything else. I could not do it. Good morning, my friend. I couldn't talk about anything other than that abuse and what I experienced. And then the more I healed and I started healing, having healing markers, right? And I start to have those healing markers in place, I begin, and we talked about this a couple of weeks ago. You got to begin to tell your body a different story. Okay? As I began to tell my body a different story, then I began to say, this is a healing time. And so the more I went along, the more the story changed. So now when I tell my story, it's the traumatic event that happened. Yes, the abuse was there. We're not negating that we were locked up in a room for 2 years. I'm not taking away from none of my story. I was absolutely abused and it was horrific. It was bad. It marked a time in my life. I decided that on July 26, 2004, when I left that abusive marriage, that was going to be a healing marker. And the more I told my story, the more I disconnected from that story because the more I was focused on the healing part. And I did not have to revisit it. Now, I tell my story to help other people. And here's the thing, if you can relate to that, if you can tell that traumatic event and relate it to other people without having the trauma response, the healing, one, has begun or the healing has fully taken place. You are free to live in your healing. You're free to live in your healing. I want to cry for some reason. I don't know who needs that. That gave me goosebumps. You are free to live in your healing, meaning even if somebody else brings that trauma back to you and they bring it to you on a silver platter and they say, JoJo, this is your traumatic event. You caused this. You get to live in your healing. You can look at them as they pass their traumatic plate to you, as they hand you your traumatic plate, your traumatic time event. They can hand it to you and it can be dressed up with all the jewels and it can be wrapped up in love and say, don't forget, I love you, but this traumatic event happened. In that moment, you get to live in your healing. You get to say, that no longer exists for me. I'm living in my healing. I have grown past that. We're not negating that it happened. We acknowledged, we healed, we overcame, we have new thought processes, we relate to it different. I don't have the same triggers that I used to. I don't wake up with the nightmares. There are things that are not there because this is your life, negative and positive. The more I focus on this end, or this is the negative, this is the positive, the more I focus on this end, which is the writing end, which is if I apply pressure to the top of this pen and the ink comes out and I'm able to write a different story. The longer I focus on the ink side and the point side, that I can write a different story and not the pressure that I'm going to have to apply to make this pen work. You get to live in your healing story. You get to write it. The pressure applying is you deciding that today I don't have to live there anymore. That's you applying pressure to the situation. This is you moving further away to focus on this end. This end says, I'm writing a different story for my body to tell. Close your eyes because your body holds you differently with your eyes closed than with your eyes open. When your eyes are open, you will be forced on the reality of the situation. When you close your eyes, your body can listen to what you're trying to say instead of trying to listen with your ears. Your ear start instead of trying to see with your ears. Your ears can't see. They're there to listen. And if they have two jobs, one of them is going to fall. Good morning, Miss Robinson. Thank you, Miss Margaret. So on this great day, and yesterday we talked about what trauma is. Trauma is how our body processes an event, right? It's how we think about it. And in that moment, I'm unable to process emotionally and physically what just happened to me. I can't process it. Because I can't process it, I eat it. I internalize it. When a trauma event occurs, it's because we have no choice and we assume we have no power to change or react to what just happened. And we cannot immediately move out of that person, place, or thing or that situation. Trauma happens in layers. Healing is going to happen in layers. So as we're telling time today, and we have time markers in our life, that time marker that says, before abuse, after abuse, that time marker that says before marriage, after marriage, that time marker that says before kids, after college, before college, high school. We all have time markers. I want us to choose, when are we going to have a healing marker? When does that start? You get to live in your healing today. You get to live in your healing. So when somebody brings you your traumatic event, listen, I talk about my traumatic event almost on a daily basis. And it is with the hopes and the intent. It is with the intent and the intention that it helps someone to live past crazy. So you don't have to stay in crazy. I'm so focused on this part. This part doesn't even exist to me anymore because I'm writing a new story. So today, as we're living in our healing, and you're free to live in your healing, friend, and not feel guilty about the traumatic event that happened to you and the fact that you can live in that healing. Because some people will make us feel like, oh, this traumatic event, JoJo, that was so, like you was only allowed to eat once a day, use the bathroom once a day. You couldn't even touch your children. You couldn't hug them. They will focus on that and say, because you went through all of that, you were beaten, you were raped in front of your child, you were all of this, because they will focus on that part, they will not allow me to live in my healing. Friend, that's when you got to draw that line. Y'all know what we say about barriers. We're going to honor boundaries. From this point, I cannot go and you cannot come. So this is my healing marker. And my healing marker says, from this point, I can't go and you can't come to me. So that means if you want to hand me my traumatic event to me and say, but JoJo, look at all of this that happened. How could you possibly heal? Then I'm going to tell you, you heal in layers. And the more you work through it, the more you focus on this endpoint, the more you tell your body a different story, the further away I get from the triggers and the connection to the traumatic event. I can tell the story now, almost emotionless. I've done the healing. I have healing time markers. I did the work. I didn't say it was easy. I didn't say it was fun. I said it was absolutely, life was worth it. And some people are waiting on death to be free. That's not me. And some of us are waiting on death to be free and that we stay in a death relationship and the only thing that's missing, honey, is us saying the final prayer over your body. You get to live in your healing. It doesn't matter how they give you your traumatic event back. You are free to say, without guilt, without shame, without any remorse, I live in healing today. I don't live in that traumatic event. I hate that you live in that traumatic event for me. I don't want you to live there either. I've healed past it. So don't say, oh, Jojo, I'm so sorry. And I don't need the sorry, the pity. I need for you to understand that you can take this story and begin a healing journey. You can mark a time and place that says this begins my healing journey. I'm free to move in healing. It is hard. It is necessary. It is life-changing. It is life-giving. It is life-freeing. It is life-taking if we allow it. I'm not saying you have to leave your friends, your family, and your loved ones. I'm saying at some point, if you want a healing marker to start, you've got to be intentional about the healing. You've got to be intentional about the barriers you're about to set. You got to be intentional about when somebody serves you your traumatic event back to you, because you're free to live in your healing. So July 26th, the day I left my ex-abuser, it was the hardest, darkest day, because that's the day before I tried to commit suicide, the day before I had been raped, I had all the things. July 26th is the day I left, the day I checked into a shelter with nothing but the clothes on my back. No money, no job, no place to live. That no longer became the day I left my ex-abuser. It became my freedom date. And sometimes your freedom date may be dark and ugly and hard, but you got to look at the stand that you took in that moment. The stand that you took that you thought was absolutely impossible, and you took it with shaky knees, and you took it with your whole body telling you you're going to die in this moment if you take that stand. At that moment, you set a healing marker in place. Whether it was, and for me, sometimes that healing marker was, I can't stay in this marriage. And let me tell you, after marriage one, the other marriages were healing. And this is not sad to say, please learn this from me. They were growth processes and they were healing markers, because in the healing of me, I understood in those relationships and those marriages that healing was so important that I had to, in my scaredness and afraidness, say, I can't do this. It doesn't matter if, say, Jojo, if my family says, now, how many last names you got? Doesn't matter, because I'm living in my healing. And it was hard and it was ugly. There was crying on my part. There was discombobulation. There was all the things. I'm not saying I didn't feel them, honey. I allowed myself to feel them. I allowed myself to set a marker as a healing time. And I healed through those times. And when somebody hands me my traumatic event back, when now, Jojo, how many husbands is this? Doesn't matter. I'm living in healing, because I can show you what I healed from, honey, through any, name one, through any of them. And the more I found myself, at some point, they all contributed to something that I needed. I contributed to what they needed. They contributed to what I needed. And we parted on the best of terms. All of them except for one. Best of terms. Healing markers. You are free to heal and stay in that healing place. Good morning, Miss Rivera. So, Miss, great morning. I've been holding back these tears for, I gotta go because I'm about to cry. I don't know why I feel like crying this morning. So I hope this has helped somebody today. As you are telling time, as you have time markers in your life, be intentional about setting your healing marker. Start living your life fearlessly. I'm not saying to not be afraid of anything. I'm saying I'm scared shitless. Fear is the first word. The more I focus on the healing, the less I'm afraid of the fear. It doesn't mean it goes away or it disappears. It means as I'm writing a different story for my body to tell, I focus less and less and less on the pressure that I need to apply to get myself to write that new story. And some of us are so afraid to press the damn pen because it's going to hurt. It's going to hurt somebody's feelings. It's going to change my family. It's going to change my church relationship. Honey, I almost got kicked out of the church. I was before the bishops and the elders pleading my case. Oh, please keep me in this church. Please keep me in this denomination. And no one believed my story. And the more I press this button, the more I realized that more I applied pressure, something was happening on the other end. But I was so focused on pressing the button and it hurting, I never acknowledged that something was happening on the other end. I was growing and I was healing the more I told my story. And so that when they came and kept handing it to me, I didn't feel this applying the pressure anymore. I was fearing less because now my focus was on the healing part. It was focused on this part in the writing of the difference. Remember we talked about the chiropractor, that when you go to the chiropractor, you're unbalanced and he says it's going to hurt. And it takes maybe you coming in 3 times a week for 3 or 4 months before he even sets your body right. And then you got to come in and then he decreases your time. So you may come in once a week and then eventually you can come in once a month for maintenance, because in your chaos, you're like this, but now you're like this because your structure has been set. It's not an option. Losing you is not an option, Margaret. Good morning, Mama. Thank you, my friend. Miss Janice, did you get, I texted you the other day. I'm not sure if you got my text message. So on this great, most amazing day, put on a hat today. Wear some lipstick. Honey, fellas, put on some good smelling cologne. Brush your hair. Let them deep waves come shining through. Ladies, let your soul glow and walk and live in your healing today. When somebody hands you your trauma, tell them no thank you. I heal from that. See, while you're trying to say, look, JoJo, I'm pressing your button, I can say, look, but I wrote a different story. That button you press, I don't even know where the hell it is anymore in my story because it doesn't exist. I had no idea all of that was coming out this morning. That was not the way I intended to go. So there we go. I hope that was for somebody today. On this great, most amazing morning, honey. I believe this. I was never, listen, healing. I judged people who had piercings and tattoos. Healing. For me, it was an expression of something. This. I believe in this so much. It's a tattoo on my body. Be peaceful, period. That's a real period there. There's absolutely nothing after that. This right here is an African symbol of healing. It's continuous. I'm going to be peaceful, period. So even on those hard days when it seems like hell is in a handbasket, peaceful, period. Healing markers. So set your healing marker today. You're going to have the most amazing day ever. I promise you will. I promise you. Please make sure you share the show because sharing is caring. If your friends and family don't have Facebook, send them over to the YouTube channel. You can binge watch all the Fearless Morning shows over there. If you would like a Sister Rise mug or bag, here are the links because I still have some available. If you would like the Sister Rise workbook that we went through, You can grab it there as well. That's the wrong link right there. Hold on. Let me delete that one. You can grab it there as well. But I want you to have the most amazing day, okay? That's what I wish for you. I am booking for next year, speaking engagements and podcasts. Refer your friend. We greatly appreciate it. If you know some audience that would love to hear how to live past crazy, because I'm the only live past crazy specialist, send them my way. Here's the link that they can use. This year has been amazing. Last year we ended the year with 3 or 4 additional books, over 50 podcasts recorded. Good morning, Laura. Couple of magazines. We had a couple of magazine features. I don't know if I told y'all that we had a couple of magazine features. We were number 1 in the UK in some magazines over there. We did some things. Thank you, Miss Margaret. I appreciate you. And I hope you have the most amazing day ever. Today, I hold space for anybody who needs to know that today is your healing marker. I hold that space for you today. Let me tell you how I'm holding this space for you today. Normally, I get up out of bed and I just go. Okay, thank you, Miss Laura. This morning, I took 45 minutes to do some stretching and deep breathing exercises and moved my body because I felt like my mind was all over the place and I couldn't pin down a thought. Have you ever woke up in your mind like you have 10,000 thoughts? That was me this morning. And I took 40 minutes to stretch and just breathe. I allowed the thoughts to come, but I focused on my breathing. And that's all I did. And today I was making room. I realized I was making room for somebody today. I'll hold space for you today. I woke up and I made room just for you. You can heal today. I don't have to know your name. I don't have to know why, who, or what. The space has been made. A to the men. So have the most amazing day ever. I want you to be peaceful, period. Please make sure you share the show because sharing is caring. And I will see you guys here bright and early tomorrow morning. Have a good one.